Hi everyone and welcome to Dystopian Simulation Radio. I'm your host Linz.
And I'm your other host, Chris.
Cheers, Chris. Yes, we are in person. We usually record online, but we're in person.
Exactly, IRL. We are here in the same room at the opposite ends of a very long table.
Yeah, with a weird lamp in the middle obscuring half of our view. But yes, we're recording these episodes in a batch because Chris is being a little bit of a jet setter soon.
We're just going to say being a bitch.
Chris has been a total bitch. Yeah, but we're recording near a beach.
We are near a beach that we know rather well, and we are recording these today. And we, as a result, we record these about 20 minutes since the last one, maybe.
Yep, we took a short break because our bodies hurt from sitting here talking about mad things. Mad jacks, mad toads, and all kinds of stuff. But yeah,
Speaking of mad people, we should thank the patrons.
Yes, we should. So thank you very much to our patrons. Chris, are you going to read this? Or you've been on a roll with it?
I'll do. I've got the list.
You're getting pretty good at it.
So thank you very much to Philip Hoffman, Pip, Emily Medeiros, Riaz, Wesley Akers, Michael M, Only Child, Drake Halvig, Linz Gibson, Kelsey Carruthers, Greer Weaver, Mike Wright, Lindsay Keller, Michael Laughlin, Jamie Sook, Creepy Paper, Crash Brodeus, Cropley Crab, Riff Cult, Heather Wynn, Graves, Devon Sweatshirt, Ordained Sinister Minister, or as I call him, OSM, Polk Daddy, and Patrice. If anyone else has joined between the day that we're recording this, which is still the 29th of June, sorry that you're not in the episode itself. We will thank you in our next recording, which will be September.
Yes. All right. Well.
Still okay?
I'm okay. Suffering from some weird allergy. I no longer look like myself, by the way, everyone, right now. My eye shape has completely changed. I don't know what's going on with me, but yeah. I think we should get right into it. Before we do, all the images to go along with this episode, and they are images, on our Instagram at d.s.radio. If you want to support us, help us keep this whole operation going, you can do so by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/dystopian simulation radio. And without any further ado,
let's get to it.
Let's get right into the story. God, I almost did a drama alert Keemstar thing. What the hell was that?
You're gritting your teeth there. Let's get to it. Bonjour, omelette du fromage.
How did you know I was going to say bonjour? That's in the script. You've been peeking.
J'ai joué au foot à la weekend.
I don't think you do, but maybe you did 20 years ago.
No. Non. J'habite en Anglaise. Je m'appelle Chris.
So, bonjour, Chris.
Bonjour.
Comment allez-vous?
Ça va.
That's right. It's time to go back to Paris. Once again for yet another morbid yet interessant topic.
Well, tell me more, my little croissant.
Oh my God. I just imagine this is how you speak to your wife.
It's not the first time I've said that.
Today we're going to talk about
Gay Paris.
Yeah, I may need you to say this for me because obviously you took French and I took German. I think that is what has happened. So I need your pronunciation skills for this, Chris. Today we're going to talk about
Les contes de la Seine.
Obviously you didn't take French for too long, Chris.
I took French for 5 years. Did not listen once.
Today we're going to talk about
Les contes de la Seine.
Or, as we would say here in Blighty, the unknown woman of the Seine, innit? To start off, Chris, have you ever taken a CPR course?
Yes, I have.
Wonderful. Then you may have locked lips with the most kissed woman in the world and the possible victim of a drowning over a century ago.
Oh, so the CPR doll is modelled on a real human. She didn't taste French.
Ew! What is that? What do French people taste like, Chris? I'll sip my beer while you regale us with that.
Obviously onions, snails, and puppy dogs' tails.
I don't think we have French listeners.
We don't now. All the French Canadians have slammed their
Gets.
slammed their baguettes down in frustration.
Legend has it that around the late 1800s, the body of a young woman was recovered from the River Seine in Paris. She was estimated to be anywhere from 16 to 22 years old. This young woman didn't look like what you'd expect a body that has been dragged out of a river to look like, no. She looked preserved, without any signs of injury or violence, with a peaceful look, a slight smile even on the face. Her body was transported to a local morgue. The pathologist there thought she was so beautiful that he took a cast of her face to preserve it.
This is the most beautiful corpse I have ever seen. Igor, get the plaster cast.
I think that aside has already got to us. Well, Chris, I know you were joking, but I think that pretty much may have been how it went. At least we can hope that's all that happened.
That's not what happened. They obviously went, get me the plaster de Paris.
Death masks are, well, just what they sound like. A plaster cast, usually taken from the face of a corpse. Sometimes they were used as a reference to paint a portrait or make a sculpture or a statue after the death of someone significant, or sometimes as just a memory of the decedent. Death masks have been a thing as early as the 2nd century BC, and some famous death masks include Mary Queen of Scots, King Tut, of course, John Dillinger, Beethoven, the composer, not the St. Bernard.
Damn it.
Even, brace yourself, Chris, the Somerton Man
Of course.
had a death mask and upper bust, if you recall from
I do remember that, yes.
previous episodes. What was the famous line?
Broad
Broad the shoulders, thin at the waist. If you want to know why that's a deeply scarring topic for us, go back and listen to the Somerton Man Part 1 and 2, because it got solved. My pet case got solved.
Immediately after we recorded.
Immediately after, which is why we worry about the status of Paul McCartney, because when we make episodes, things move. So let's take a look at some famous death masks then, Chris.
So you sent me a website, the 7 most famous death masks in history. The first one being Dante. Dante being a...
Of the Inferno.
So he wrote... of course he did. Dante's Inferno. Not from Devil May Cry. No. Who was a death aficionado, apparently. So his death mask is displayed in Florence, Italy. He's got a bit of a hooky nose going on there, but otherwise relatively flattering.
I think it's a character. I think,
Nothing
wrong with that kind of nose, I think. Come on. He looks like he should have been a statue.
Yeah.
Handsome devil.
Next up, we've got Mary, Queen of Scots, Queen Mary I, who, unlike Dante, has a fully sort of painted death mask.
It's quite beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, there's been hair added to it. It's very realistic. Whereas the other one is clearly a death mask. It's hand painted, apparently. She was killed by beheading, so presumably they had a reference to put it literally next to.
Chris.
John Keats is next, a poet, died of tuberculosis, and he has got he's got your what you're thinking of, plaster of Paris.
The classic, classic.
Around the head.
Yep.
We've got Napoleon Bonaparte, another one here. Got his face here.
And his neck.
And his neck. It's a weird thing, isn't it? Because he's not got a very flattering neck.
Well, It's just sort of a weird way of doing it. I mean, I think they all look really cool. It's strange, you know, like that's the death mask, but it just looks like...
Mm. Well, I mean, the way that they've cut that off at the neck looks like it was supposed to be mounted on a wall like a deer.
It looks like a trophy. Okay, they could have done a better job with
that. William Blake, next. That's very realistic.
That's amazing, isn't it? And so it should be for an artist.
Mm-hmm. Cause of death, slightly unknown. Interesting.
Slightly unknown.
Michael Collins, that's very... that one just looks like a statue. John Dillinger.
That's pretty cool.
Earlier, you can actually see them taking the mask here of his face in 1939. John Dillinger being an organized crime boss, killed by the FBI. And that's what I think probably the most interesting one there, because we can see it literally being taken as Don Dillinger, or even his alter ego, John Dillinger.
Interesting technique. And if you think about taking mementos of people who've passed, you know, some people go with a lock of hair, prints, whatever, but the death mask, there's something, the last chance to preserve the likeness of someone. So this young woman, maybe teenager, we don't know, she was so beautiful to the pathologist that she's got her own death mask. And obviously, as we know, the Somerton Man case helps to identify people. You know, they didn't know who she was. They can keep it. If anyone visits Paris, recognizes her, case solved. But her death mask would live on. So let's take a look at the face that captivated France, Chris, and you can describe it to the listeners. Before we do, any sort of idea of what you expect this to look like?
I mean, like you say, I've if this is what I think it is, I've seen this face before. I've locked lips with her. I've pushed repeatedly on her chest.
This is just Chris being a romantic, everyone.
Hey, but this is not what so what you've sent me here. This is what makes it look a little bit different to me, because usually on these CPR dolls, the hair is not realistic. It's combed back. It looks like it's had, 17 buckets of gel dumped on it.
Well, she is a drowned victim, Chris, and you don't tend to have a blowout after that.
But yeah, she is here at rest. The eyes are closed. She seems to almost have a slight smile.
Quite angelic.
Yeah, I can see her as angelic, cherub-like. Yeah, probably helped by a youthful appearance.
Yeah,
I wouldn't take a look at this and say she's the most beautiful person I've ever seen, but yeah.
But of the time, like beauty standards change.
Yeah, no. That's a very good point.
I suppose back then, just having sort of a clear, healthy appearance.
Being ravaged by syphilis.
So yeah, of the time, what's beautiful now is probably not going to be that beautiful in about 5 years.
You didn't have a BBL?
I was thinking about BBLs today. Yeah, I saw one.
You're always thinking about BBL. What, here? How do you recognise one?
It's easy.
Is it?
Like the thighs and the hips. The balance is a little bit different.
Right, I see.
Point one out next time I see one. Yes, please.
Please.
Point out all the S's. All right. So nobody knew who this young woman was. There were stories of unrequited love, heartbreak, followed by suicide, all this romantic, morbid kind of like explanations. But no reports or officially recorded accounts can be sourced. This is the story. The death mask was considered so beautiful by the French that within a few years it was actually mass-produced as art, compared to the Mona Lisa, and hung in the homes of arty-farty people all over France and elsewhere.
You see, that kind of tracks, because Mona Lisa,
Maybe back then it was, no.
I
No.
mean, she must have had a very beautiful French voice. That's the only thing I can say. Oh, yeah.
I mean, she's not beautiful.
No, she's not ugly.
It's different to everybody, Times are different, Everyone's beautiful in their own way.
Of course. Even if you're found in the Seine. To this pathologist who definitely wasn't doing things.
I'm sure it was innocent, like, oh, what a beautiful young woman, what a shame. But at the same time, We have covered so many awful stories on this podcast that we instantly think the worst or the most crazy of everybody.
Alain, go and get some plaster of Paris and make sure you take about 30 to 40 minutes.
Chris, that's disgusting.
I'm kidding. 14 minutes.
You're so fucking gross. These masks were sculpted using a photographic image of the original mask. I have to note here that the origins of the mask have kind of been disputed over the years, and accounts of the actual subject have been debated. So, according to George Villa, the apprentice of a French painter, Jules Joseph Lefebvre, I'll get Google to say that for me in the edit, the death mask was actually taken from a girl who had died of tuberculosis in the mid to late 1800s, although there was no original cast to back up his claims. The story that the mask was that of a German mask maker's teenage daughter was also thrown around as a theory. Regardless of who she was, she would continue to appear in novels, plays, paintings, and on the walls of many a French home. But her likeness would get a whole new lease of life in the form of the world's first CPR dummies. The first aid mannequin, called Rescue Annie, was created by an Austrian anesthesiologist called Peter Safar. These dummies were produced as teaching aids and medical simulators for those learning how to perform CPR. Safar worked with Bjorn Lind and Osmund S. Ledrell, who was a Norwegian toy maker, to develop the CPR doll, and rumour has it the face was modelled on the death mask of the beautiful unknown girl. So let's take a look at these first CPR dummies. Let me know if you can see the resemblance.
So I've got a couple of pictures of these Rescue Annie dolls here. Let's just say the way they're folded, she's a girl that you'd like to get to know.
Chris! These will be at t.s.radio, everyone.
You can see them all there, but they are, I'm looking at it in comparison. The first image that you sent, the one with the blue pants, they've all got blue pants, but the image that I'm looking at here is right next to the previous image that you sent me of the actual face, or the cast of the face at least, and you can see the resemblance between the two. But yeah, these are the Rescue Annie dolls. They're fairly ubiquitous around the world. If you've ever done a CPR course, you will have seen this or a variation on it. Although I will note that these ones all have more flexible hair.
Yes, and
or realistic hair.
The reason you were laughing at the way she was folded is because the doll comes in a case, and it's folded up to fit into it.
Yeah, it's a bit Boxing Helena, isn't it?
It's very Boxing Helena. If you've seen that movie, I'm sorry for you.
Cut off your arms and I cut off your legs. Would you still love me anyway?
Oh, that's giving me some nostalgia, Chris. So yeah, what do you think? Do you think this is it's fair to say that the Rescue Annie doll, the face was based on the death mask?
I don't have a hard time believing that. It looks seems to make sense to me. Yeah, why not?
Now, unfortunately, Chris, it's a lot less hilarious without the face, as I discovered via this eBay listing.
Oh. Hello. This looks something out of They Live.
Yeah.
The nose is missing, and it looks like an alien. And I never really clocked, but it does have realistic breasts.
Yeah, I have never. I think I've only seen male CPR dummies.
I'm thinking so. They always called them Rescue Annies, but they all had male
chests, right?
I'm thinking about it, but I mean, to be fair, they should do, because they're supposed to be accurate portrayals of what you would need to do in that scenario, and obviously that's something that you've got to take into account as well.
So when you did your CPR course, was it a male or female dummy? Can you remember?
I'm sure they were female, but I'm also sure that they were topless and they just had action men chests.
Yeah, right. That's the only one I've seen, unless we just do it differently here in England.
Yeah.
So...
Because I definitely would have had a honk.
What is wrong with you today? It's honestly so fucking difficult to record when we're face to face. I've actually missed this. Alright, so you may think that's terrifying, but wait until you see Baby Annie, the horrific infant version of the CPR doll.
That is terrifying. That is absolutely terrifying. I mean, obviously, it's kind of anyway. I mean, I actually did when my son was born, not long afterwards, I did an infant CPR sort of awareness thing, and the guy who was running it was saying, like, I've delivered CPR thousands of times in my life. I can't remember them, but the 2 or 3 that I've had to do on children, I remember every single one.
Oh.
Like, yeah.
Oh, God.
But this this doll in itself is terrifying.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of dolls they have in Norway, but I feel for them if this is what children are growing up with.
Christ.
Absolute nightmare fuel. So any listeners that have learned CPR, it's possible you may have breathed life into the essence of the unknown girl of the Seine. And I also, before we finish up here, Chris, I have another interesting little tidbit that I think you'll appreciate. Now, throughout this storytelling, has it sparked anything in you?
No, I mean, memories of CPR courses.
No, nothing else?
You don't have to have fond memories of everyone you've kissed.
Well, apparently back in the days when people first began training on their CPR mannequin, they would be taught to start off by saying, Annie, are you okay?
No!
Which is where Michael Jackson got his lyric for Smooth Criminal, in which he describes a crime scene and a victim.
No way! Oh, that's amazing.
Right?
I always wondered who the it's Annie. I always thought it was, because there was that Moonwalker movie that came out, which if anyone's ever seen it, it's sort of like a series of short movie videos put together, really music videos, I should
and
say.
Even better, the Sega Mega Drive game.
Well, that is what exactly. But I always wondered, like, is one of the kids in that called Annie? Because there's a whole kind of story bit that precedes the music video that you're all thinking of. And then Joe Pesci appears. Robo Pesci.
You didn't have to say that mid-drink.
Mr. Big. That's what his name is.
Mr. Big.
Mr. Big. Funny how?
Funny like a clown?
I'm here to amuse you, is that it? Like a fucking clown? No, Joe. I just want to film a music video.
But isn't that amazing?
That is amazing. I had absolutely no idea about that little tidbit at all.
Me either. Because at first I was trying to come up with things that I'd always been interested in, but never really looked into that deeply. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. It's quite morbid. It was good to go back to Paris with the script. And then I saw this and I was like, oh, hell yeah.
I've looked quite deep into Annie before.
Fuck's sakes. Chris, what is wrong with you? You've had half an Asahi. He knows her intimately.
I do.
Yeah, but that's the story of...
I had absolutely no idea that face was modelled after a real person. I mean, I suppose somewhere,
yeah, but
if I'd really
about
thought
it,
of it.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's modelled after an unknown woman, that's the interesting part, really, because you would have just thought it might have been the person who first thought of its wife or daughter or somebody that they knew or whatever.
But then again, it's quite a morbid thing to model. Like, if you were creating this product, right, and you were like, oh, I need a face for it, for this drowning, dying victim, you're not really going to look at your loved one, because you're not going to want...
No. And I suppose you would have the issue of, like, if you tried to approach somebody who had loved ones, they might be like... They might be like, no, I don't want to do that. Or, yeah, and if it's a living person, I don't know, there might be issues that come up through that. So yeah,
but
it makes sense. An
supposed unknown victim from the 1800s is probably perfect. And it's just like you never think about these things, and it's actually really interesting. Like I did not know that this, like whoever she was, there's different theories, but whoever she was, like her likeness has really lived on in all kinds of ways.
Definitely,
and helped a lot of people who may have drowned, like she supposedly did too.
Well, I mean, I suppose in some way she's made a much bigger mark on the world than she ever thought that she would. I mean, she's no doubt prevented thousands and thousands of deaths through being an education tool. So,
yeah,
whatever happened to her was very unfortunate, but at least her death means something ultimately.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Like you can be the subject of a piece of art, a painting, a sculpture, whatever it may be. And there's so much art being produced all the time, but like some pieces are just iconic. And like you mentioned the Mona Lisa, and like everybody knows that painting. They know what it looks like. They can imagine it right away. And this mask is like, it was hanging in the homes of people. It's been mentioned in books and
Whistler's Mother. Everyone knows that one from the famous movie Beam.
Okay.
The painting from Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah, everyone knows that.
I hated that when I was a kid. Yeah, I remember one time I was going through a Spanish airport, not by myself because I was a child, but I think my gran bought me a pack of playing cards that had Ghostbusters on it, and like I was going through, I was having a great time. Oh, it's amazing, there's Slimer, there's Egon, it's all great. What the fuck is that? And it was that. It was that painting again of that. Oh. The only thing that could be any more terrifying would be if it was dipping French fries in milkshakes.
Speaking of which, what time is it? Do we have time? Oh, I know that restaurant will still be open. That's exactly what we're going to do after this episode, Chris. You ready?
No.
Well, brace yourself. But thank you so much, everyone, for listening. We hope that you found this slightly shorter episode very interesting. And yeah, if any of you guys have done CPR, there you go. There's the history of the mannequin that you learned from.
And Annie, if you're out there, call me, baby. That didn't work. Call me, baby.
Smooth. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.